Okay.
Get a minute microphone, I didn't lie.
30 seconds with the video straight.
Yes.
We'll talk, but nothing really important.
You may want, I too worked with Daryl for a minute, if that matters.
I don't know if that's good.
Right? Yeah.
They all left.
Well, I barely know you two, but I was blown away by Eleanor when I came to my first, well, it was block by block, the pre-Lion conference. And so you guys, anytime she's speaking, be there, because she's
Oh, she's very kind.
she's good.
Now you can say things that matter.
I'll pay her the $50 later.
Yeah, she does consulting. Yeah. Okay. What we thought was interesting, Matt actually made this suggestion, and I thought it was good, so we're going to run with it, is we thought that we would put ourselves in the shoes of the local businesses that we are approaching when we're trying to sell advertising, and talk about what they want, what they need, what they expect, and what they're hearing when we're talking. And but first, I wanted for the four of us up here just to get a good context of who's in the room and kind of what stage you're at. How many of you have a salesperson on your team at this point? Okay.
Ooh, very nice.
That's not you. Do you have another salesperson beside you?
Okay.
That's good.
How many have more than two?
Nice.
Okay, great. And then how many people in here offer services other than advertising, such as digital services, SEO, SEM, retargeting? Okay, great. Thank you. We'll start off with a real easy one. What products do you think have the highest client satisfaction?
Anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from all three of you, really. We can start with you, Eleanor.
Okay. So for those of you who know me, this won't be a surprise. I'm not a product seller. So I say the things that have the highest client satisfaction are the ones that actually meet their needs and objectives. And you'll hear me talk a little bit about selling and an approach to sales tomorrow. But essentially, if you ask the right questions to a small business and really understand what's important to their customer. So just as we're saying, well, you know, let's think about business through the lens of the small business in our marketplace or the business that we are trying to do business with. The thing that's most important to them is the thing that's going to drive business to them, and that's really based on what's important to the customers that choose them. So I'm a bit product agnostic, and I'm pretty religious on if you just do a really good job at talking with customers, you can identify how to market their businesses, and the product or solution that best serves that is the one that will get you the best results and get them the best results.
This is a really tough question, I think, with small businesses, because there's a lot of what have you done for me lately. So their feeling about you and what you're offering them tends to be how well they've done over the last day or two before you walked in to see them. So I am a tech guy, and we do have a product, so there's certainly some bias there. We lean very much towards the online aspect of things now. That's where things are going, and there's the famous phrase that you should be going to where the puck is going, not where the puck is now. So we do believe that again, given the nature that the small businesses are going to be fairly transactional, are going to want to know what's happening yesterday and today, that you're doing things with them on a very consistent basis. And one of the challenges with ads is it can be very static. So I would say think of things where you can be, following up with them is really critical, but following up with them with something that's actually value added to them is gold.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm with Eleanor on the platform agnostic part. The same things that disrupted our newspaper industry 10, 15 years ago have happened to our local merchants. They used to need maybe an ad in the phone book. Hopefully they bought a newspaper ad. They were a little bit bigger, they bought radio or TV. But nowadays they clearly have to take care of their online housekeeping with a quality website that's getting found in search. Just some of the basics, the essentials. And surprisingly, a lot of businesses still aren't there. And I know many of you probably call on clients that say something like, you know, I'd really like to buy a banner ad from you, but my website's so bad I don't want to link to it right now, right? So some of these guys just need basic blocking and tackling, but that is a wonderful relationship to establish with a client, and then from there you can sell them marketing. You can help them with social media. You can help them with, you know, various other products. But you know, it's building that relationship, and the trust that you guys have in your local markets with your local clients gets you so far ahead of those competitors, because believe me, small businesses today are getting cold called to death. So they would much rather work with someone they know and trust, which are a lot of the people in this room.
Okay, I agree with all that too. Ads are, for most of us, going to be the highest profit margin, because we're not having to pay for the services, you know, the digital services, that markup that we have, whether it's you know, sometimes it's half, sometimes it's more. So what is the value in offering extra services? We've covered that a little bit here, but the overall value, well, I was about to answer it. I'll let you answer it.
Yeah, well, I'll start. You know, it's great to get that nice recurring revenue stream. So in selling the services programs, some of them are at good margin, but it's having that relationship and then selling for this month and for next month. And by the end of the year, you've got 50, 60 active clients. You're billing $400 or $500 a month. Now you're building yourself a nice base of revenue. And sometimes with the advertising packages, they run in flights. They stop and start, and you can't count on them month after month as your only revenue stream. Not that they are very profitable. So, you know, we help our partners do both. But that's what I would, you know, say to that question.
So this is going to be biased from Busyhood's perspective. I think first off, when you look at the margins you're making on ads, you also have to keep into account the cost of sale, right? Because, you know, they are transactional, so you're going back over and over again to try to resell that ad, and that takes time and that costs money. I know most of you pay salespeople on commission, so you don't necessarily view that as a cost of sale. But if they're out there and they have to constantly go back to the same people and they can't go get new business, that is a cost of sale because you're losing opportunity. So the first thing is, you know, ad revenue is great. It keeps pretty much everyone in this room in business, but it's really not the only thing you should be selling. The other thing is that I think there needs to be a big shift, and this gets talked about all the time, between transactional selling and consultative selling. And the idea, and maybe because I am a consultative seller and I've been one for many, many years, it doesn't strike me as a really hard thing to do. And I know what I've heard in the publishing space is it's generally hard to get ad salespeople to learn how to be consultative, but I just don't think it should be that hard. And the more things they have in their bag that they can go to that small business about and talk about authoritatively, and the more things that you can show that you are authoritative in your local community is a huge differentiator. As Daryl said, you're already trusted, right? But if you're not authoritative, that's going to hurt you and make it harder for you to make the sale. So being local, being trusted, and being authoritative, I think are great things. And so products and services like what we offer and what Daryl offer, you can't just take them and just say, here they are, sign up, right? It takes some authority on top of it. But you're already, 50% of the way there. Daryl and I talked at lunch, actually. We both have programs in place to help you and the businesses get 100% of the way there, because we realize there is education involved. And if you do that, now you've got 5 things to sell instead of 1 thing to sell to that same customer. So if you're making 50% margin on one and 20% on the other and 33% on the third, that's all positive cash flow that's coming in that you didn't have yesterday.
Oh, so I agree with everything these guys said. I'm from the South, and so I would just say this. Well, I have many things to say as well, but, I think, has anybody's mama ever said, don't put all your eggs in one basket? Anybody ever heard that? So, when you're an entrepreneur and you're building your business, why on earth would you have just a singular revenue stream? You need to have some diversity in that approach to revenue so that you can win. So that's the first thing that I will say. You want to make sure that you have multiple channels for revenue so that you have more insulation and you have less risk. So that's sort of the paramount thing that I would say there. The second thing that I would say is, as you're talking with local businesses in the marketplace, If you are being consultative, you are talking with them about their business. From my perspective, I believe that you're doing a disservice to not actually talk with them holistically about their business. And would anybody in the room say that they have complete market share in their market? So, I think for hyper-local news sites and topical interest news sites, we have great audiences, but there's the necessity to advance or extend that reach. And to do that, diversity in services and offering digital services allows you to do that. So that's doing the right thing for your customer and helping them get the best results. And once you start working with a business, I'm like the kind of seller that I always was I felt like nobody would give this advertiser better consultation than I would. Like, I cared about their success a lot. Now, I had some bias in that. I mean, their success meant my success. So selfishly, I think that's perfectly okay. But, so I really found myself in a place where I felt like I would give them better consultation holistically than anyone else would. And I wanted to advise them of their services. And if you're out there selling, you become, if you're doing a good job, you find yourself in a place where you actually are, I don't know, what is referred to as a trusted advisor. And that means clients are asking you, should I do this? This salesperson came in, they talked with me about this. I think I'm gonna do this. I had one customer once who said, I think I'm gonna buy that paper map, where that's like a game and they put your name on the map. And I said, why? Right, is there a result? Is there gonna be an impact from that? Let's talk about how this fits holistically into your campaign. So doing the right thing for your customers is the second reason I would state that. And then the third one is you have a sales resource who's in market. And that sales resource can go out and garner a piece of margin, right? A nice, sizable piece of margin because you've got high margin on your products. But why wouldn't you, as a business owner, why wouldn't you want to increase your share? So increasing share of wallet, taking an additional amount of what's currently being spent in the marketplace, even if that additional spend comes to you at a lesser margin than what your core business does, you've got a sales resource that's out there. You're already making that investment. Why wouldn't you make that investment more profitable?
I think it's key. We have a team of 3 salespeople and a customer service person, and I have what I call her a digital media manager, and she produces all the ads, and she does social media in-house for our clients. But we only work with people who are already advertising with us, and so we keep it contained to not get too big. And last year, we brought in a third party so that we could start offering SEO, SEM, retargeting. And it has helped, it's taken the clients that we already had and made the buy bigger. And so it's, we've had a positive experience with it. But I will say, you still have to become, even though somebody else is going to be doing this for you and you have that third party in there, you still have to understand from head to toe everything that is SEO and SEM and retargeting and the basics of what you need to get from them to know what a website build out looks like. And not all of us are there, but if you start offering these services, you definitely need to take the time to get training and understand and make sure your salespeople are out there confidently advising their your customers. In addition to what we were just talking about and being the trusted advisor, Eleanor and I were talking about so much came out of that great panel a little while ago, but 2 of them mentioned we couldn't get their attention. And all of us wanting to be successful, I'll pose to you, how do we compete locally? How do we become top of mind? And how do we get their attention?
You want to go first? Yeah, sure. No, I'll always talk, Eleanor. You know.
Okay.
No, one of the things we do with a lot of our markets is also position ourselves as educators. And you can do that with your local chamber if you have a relationship there, or you can just go down to the local Marriott and get a conference room and promote an educational seminar. And bring them in, let them learn more about you, your business, as well as educate them on the opportunities in digital. And without fail, I mean, merchants are hungry for this information. And when you position yourself a little bit as an educator rather than just another sales organization, they appreciate that. I did a seminar this week in Wilson, North Carolina, salute. And we had 50 small businesses show up, and I said, my goal for you guys today is to walk out of here with at least one tip you can take back to your business and put to work today to improve your online presence. And they so appreciated that, and they took lots of notes, and we gave them the whole sales deck or the whole presentation deck. And so that is a great way to set yourself apart from so many of the other guys just trying to get in their wallet and take some marketing dollars.
So I actually, one point on the last question, then I'll loop that into answering this question. One of the things that we're working on with a couple of our early publishers is the idea of self-service, right? So if there's features or capabilities that you can offer to your constituency where they can come in and self-select, where there isn't somebody physically going out and twisting an arm to get them to do it, that's obviously a much higher margin type of sale. So we do think that that's a possibility. Obviously, being a tech platform, we're trying to enable something like that. So we think that that's something that's important that we're trying to do. Now, with that said, in terms of how do you get people engaged in your community, we're very convinced. I mentioned last night, for those of you here last night, that I believe, and the folks at Busyhood, we all believe now, that you all should be the authoritative resource in your community. And the reason we say that is as follows. We talk with a lot of marketing folks that will say that they do almost all of their advertising for their small businesses on Facebook, because Facebook is so effective. And there's two aspects to Facebook. You can either do organic posts, your own posts that don't cost any money, which basically nobody sees anymore, or you can pay, right? You can pay for Facebook boosted posts, and then you can actually say, I want this to go to people that are 35 to 44-year-old males that live in my town that drive a Harley. Right? So it's super high targeted. Who else has that level of targeting for a small business that wants to reach people that are 5 or 10 miles within their business? You all. You're the only ones. Right? Google's pretty much given up with this with Google+. Twitter is not really meant for this type of activity. LinkedIn is for business. So the only other place they can really go if they're trying to target people in your community is you. So we need to figure out together how you can take advantage of that. And that's something that can actually build on top of itself, just like Facebook, right? And I'm not implying that you all are going to be as big as Facebook, right? Because that can't happen in a local community. But certainly in your community, you can be as authoritative as a Facebook. There's absolutely no reason why you can't. And I hear, I talk with a lot of you that say, I don't see that, I don't think that can happen. I think Yelp is always going to be number one. And we humbly disagree. And for those that are willing to try with us, we're hoping, next year when we come here, we'll show all the successes of the folks in this room that are local Facebooks in your community.
So I think there are several ways that you can differentiate yourself in the community and that you can make it and stand out. So David talked earlier about managing your business like a business, right? So I term that in being intentional. And I think that managing a business really requires you to be quite intentional about every action that you take and every move that you make. So I'm going to talk a lot tomorrow about being intentional in sales and what that sales process looks like. But I'm going to go back to one of the things that I see happen a lot with entrepreneurs, particularly in competitive markets. And that is when competitors emerge, I very often see folks really look at what that competitor's doing and then begin to model it. So they move their posture from a really strong identity of, I know what I do, I know what I'm good at. I mean, for any entrepreneur, for any of you, you got into a business or a segment because you saw a job to be done. You were trying to solve a problem, right? You saw something that was necessary and there was something there that you needed to accomplish or be done, something you were doing for the community, something that you were doing for a topic or an area of interest. So stay true to your identity. Very often folks will look at what competitors do and they move into reaction mode. So they move beyond what is core to them and what is the thing that actually serves the need or the job to be done in the marketplace. And if that continues, you will find yourself, and folks find themselves 12 months, 16 months later, not really understanding what their identity is and not understanding why they're winning. So, I think in a business you have to always take forward a couple of practices. I think that you should always have a top 10 list, the top 10 things that could kill our business. So what are the things that can most impact us? If these assumptions prove not to be true, then we've got a really big business problem. And then secondly, you've got to be really, really certain and stay really, really true to what problem you're trying to solve or job you're trying to complete in that marketplace. Who's the consumer that you're serving or the reader that you're serving? So if you're able to do those things, then you've got very clear vision, you have a very clear elevator pitch, you have a very clear strategy on your position in the marketplace, and then you can go forth and just guerrilla market the hell out of yourselves. So I will give you, we don't have time to talk about it now, but I will give you my contact info and have great examples of really great hyper-local marketing, guerrilla targeting, inexpensive but good strategies to really get great visibility and brand awareness and brand affinity in your market. I'm happy to share those.
Okay. Does anybody tell me how much time we have left? Okay, while they're doing that, does anybody have any questions at this point?
I kind of have a question. It's just very specific to me, but I have a small mom and pop appliance repair business. I have a small mom and pop appliance repair business that I, got them to advertise on the site. I made a pitch to them based on something that, they sent me, and I offered them a very cheap start. Try it for $50 or something like that. So then when it expired, I said, thank you very much. I think it was a successful campaign. And they said, well, how much would it cost, regularly? So I told them, and they said, yeah, let's give it a try. So then the next time the time was running out, they said, well, we really want to try it again. We really like having the ad on your site, and we like the statistics and the analytics, but we haven't really had anybody come into the store and say it was because they saw it on your site. And so I said, well, not everybody always needs an appliance every day or an appliance repaired every day, but it's that visibility and that presence of mind that gets you out in front, so that, the other hurdle is that we have Best Buy and we have Home Depot, and so you're like the last of the mom and pops around here doing what you do, so telling your story, might help. So I gave them like a business spotlight as a perk of advertising. I just keep thinking they're going to pull the plug in a minute, because it's like, well, now they just put up a new ad with a link that says, Manchester Ink Link ad, so that now they're going to track to see, if anybody mentions that they saw it on the Ink Link. And I'm thinking, I can't guarantee that I'm going to bring a customer through your door, but I can guarantee that, every month, 200,000 people are going to see your name on my site. It's just that they're small little business. They're not used to this type of advertising. They're not slick in any way. And there's probably other businesses out there like that have a niche that is, so that's my dilemma, is that I don't want to lose an advertiser because I didn't deliver. Mm-hmm. However, I don't know how to refine my pitch or my story to these small businesses that have never had to, they're not thinking big, or they're not thinking in the long term. Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
Okay.
It makes great sense. So I think tomorrow morning's session, and I'm going to really try not to make it run long, but I think that will be quite helpful. So I have just a little advice that I would encourage, and I'm sure my colleagues do as well. So the first thing that I would say is, in any business, you want to be in the proactive seat, not the reactive seat. So you definitely want to get in front of that business well before they cancel, and you should have, or before the time is up. So one of I think the most incredible lines that I know of in sales is simply this: Mr. Advertiser, I was thinking about your business like as though I were a customer, and I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you, to get an opportunity to sit down and talk with them a bit more. Now, for any small business, if you go through a process and you are marketing them and you understand clearly what their value proposition is or what makes them great, and you're using that in an ad campaign, they typically are very happy, and the cancellation rate is really low. But I think the other thing, and you started to do this with the advertiser, is to help them understand how advertising works when it works. So advertising when it works is based on collective lift. And certainly for an appliance business, they're really facing a thin market. Does everybody know what the thin market is? Essentially, it means that at any good or time, or any at any given time in the marketplace, there are only a few folks who are actually ready to make a decision on a particular good or service. So there's a very thin market of people available to purchase or buy. The important factor for somebody who's in an appliance business or a service business is how are they best top of mind, and how do they ensure that their value proposition, what makes them great, actually resonates with consumers so that they see it. So when they're ready to make a decision, they choose them. And the third thing that I would say is whenever you are talking with a business, particularly like that, is look at what they're doing in other media and what their other messaging is. Because they should have collective lift. So advertising works when it works because it works together. So it's very rare, unless you've got a price and offer type ad. You know, you can get a washer today for $100. You know, and even those, sometimes it depends. But if you're doing price and item advertising, direct response advertising, you can sometimes tie that back to the direct attribution. But in a service business, it really becomes this collective lift, this visibility in multiple places. So your advertiser will have better results if what they're doing, if the messaging that they're doing is consistent and there's a synergy between all of their ad strategies. So, anything?
Absolutely, yeah. So it was interesting. The first thing that came to my mind as you were describing your story was something that you mentioned earlier about all your eggs in one basket. So if the only thing that you have to offer the appliance store is ads, then you're highly motivated to figure out how to make it work. But as you were describing it to me, I would do exactly what they did, right? So it didn't seem like it was working, so now they put a tracking code in, now they're gonna know for sure. And the fact is, if the tracking code doesn't work and nobody saw it, I wouldn't continue the ad either. Mm-hmm. So part of it is understanding their business, right? And so what an appliance store needs may be different than what a restaurant needs versus a florist. And saying, look, I've got several things here that could possibly help you do this. And you know what, we ran the ad and we gave you a special price and it wasn't working that great for you. But you know, we've done this with a few other folks that are, you know, in your type of business, and we would suggest doing this instead, right? Or maybe let's look at your social media strategy. One of the things that we talk about a lot is intent-based searching, because so many more people are now searching on their mobile phones. Mm-hmm. I don't know that an appliance store fits in. I'm not going to go on my cell phone and say I need a washer and dryer. Yeah. But you know, intent-based search is becoming, it's actually growing quite significantly. Mm-hmm. So if it's a business where intent-based search is a positive thing, you want to start pushing things in that direction, either in lieu of or in addition to ads. So to me, what I heard is it's actually, I think your fear is actually, I'm not trying to scare you, but I think your fear is founded, mm-hmm. right? The ad probably isn't going to be the best route for them. So my question to you would be, what else can you offer them?
Right, and like I said, I did do a business spotlight. I think I did it for them. If not, the last email, I send their ad stats every Friday. I do that for all my advertisers when I tell them. I do it personally. I don't do it automated. I do it personally, and I give them a little rundown, like, hey, this looks really great here. We can do better here. Here's an idea,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to keep it connected to them. But I suggested some sort of I said, you know, you're in a tough place as the probably last mom and pop appliance store in Manchester. But, you know, Small Business Saturday is coming up. You know, it might be a great opportunity to remind people about why it's important to support people in the community like you know, members of the community like you, who have been here for 35 years and, you know, all of that. And I think, and she said, that sounds great. So, I mean, maybe they'll pull the plug on the ad and maybe they won't.
And that's the consultative approach that we talked about before.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right, the consultative approach is really the key, and they will continue to work with you if you work with them in that fashion. It may not be the ad, right? But right.
Just 5 seconds. I would print out your business spotlight, frame it, and take it to them so they can hang it on their wall in their store. And then they'll never stop. Yep.
Anybody else have a question? Oh, I wanted, can you just in case there's somebody not in here that does not know, intent-based search is?
So intent-based search is when somebody is on Google or Bing and saying, I am looking for this. The stuff that comes back on the first page of the search result is your intent. The chances of someone going to the second page of Google now is like 2%. So whatever's on the first page is what they're going to go after. Again, our claim is that all of you can be on the first page of a Google search when someone's intending to search for something that's one of a business in your community. Did that answer the question?
Yep. Just thought since you brought it up, would make you tell him what it was. Yes, ma'am.
This may be pretty entry level to you, but in my area, people still have not accepted the internet as a place to put an ad, and they think an ad is printed. And whereas we have a newspaper, a local newspaper with no readers, and our site has a lot more viewers or users, they still think an ad, they think it's intangible. And I just wondered if you had anything to say about that.
What are their, I would just ask them, when you have a question, what do you do? Ask them that. When do you go find the dictionary or go find your yellow pages, or do you just Google it? I mean, and so they may be thinking about ads a little differently, but these days when we all have a question, it's become a verb, right? We just Google it. We don't go, what did I do with that phone book? I better go find the phone book. I need a plumber. You know, I mean, it's just not happening.
That's right. So my advice would be, with any customer, try to talk them into terms, try to talk with them in terms that they actually relate to. So if you're dealing with older merchants or older customers who don't think the internet has happened yet, then don't talk with them necessarily about the internet. Don't take your computer, don't take a tablet, take something that's printed. Talk with them about readers, not visitors. Use language that is familiar to them. Don't talk with them about impressions. Talk about how many times someone will view their ad, right? Don't talk with them about analytics or any of the things that don't mean anything to them, because it's not important, right? Talk to them in a medium that they understand. And then talk with them about their ad creative and go back to them about their business. So, you know, what makes them great? What's their value proposition? What does a customer care about when they look to them for a choice? But use mediums that are more agreeable to them and talk with them in language that is not digital language. Kind of take them through with baby steps. Right, so there's a process that you can take merchants through to sort of educate them, but then there's also a process that you can take with merchants who just aren't there to bring them along. And you know, for many folks who don't really get it or don't believe in it, a lot of digital is being intimidated by it, right? And many folks who talk about digital use language and use terms and talk really high level, and you know, and they talk about how the watch was built and how it operates and all these things. And you know, the business owner doesn't really care about that. They want to know, like, how am I going to get a customer in the door? How am I going to increase my sales? I'm an apartment building. I've got 20 open units. Those 20 open units are costing me, you know, not having those 20 open units filled is, you know, $20,000 a month. And if I start to annualize that, that's huge money. So if we talk with them about things that are relevant to their business and bring it back to them that way, they stop being so concerned about the platform or intimidated by the platform, and more concerned or more interested in how you're going to help them fill that gap.
I think you can also, okay. All right, go.
When you're talking about intent-based search, like, I know my news stories come up on that first page, but how do I get my advertisers to come up on that first page? Is there a way?
That was such a great softball.
Yeah.
Okay.
How much do I owe you? $100 gift certificate, right, for the best question of the day? So we should talk about this offline, because I don't want to be up here doing a sales pitch. But there are, and your answer over here was fantastic, because I suffer from this too. When I talk with all of you, you know, I get into geek speak very quickly, and I talk about how the internet works and search engines and how they spider things and what's important, and most of your eyes glaze over. So I get the challenges of the technology. The bottom line is that what I'll say is that there are technology companies like Yelp, like Google, like Thumbtack that have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into making their pages on their site findable by Google, right? And they're worth a lot of money because of that. Now they've got a global problem they're trying to solve, or at least national, right? You guys are hyper-local, so you only need to win in your local market. So there are lots of tactics, such as a business directory, that if you have on your site and it's coded properly and you have links going back and forth between your articles and the business entries in the directory, and if you give your customers little badges for them to put on their website that point to their page on your site, these are all things that search engines really like, because they see you as having more authority, because you have more outbound links coming into your site, you have more cross links between pages on your own site. And then the last piece of it is customer feedback, letting your readers give reviews to the businesses and letting the businesses respond. So you're getting lots of feedback. You're getting daily, consistent, new content on your site. It's your site, right, because it's your business directory. All of these things are really good for search. Google and Bing will rate your site higher because you've got that kind of conversation going on. That's in complement to your really great, unique content that you're creating that Google sees as being authentic and good.
So your advertisers will show up in that search, except they'll be sitting in his directory. So in a sense, you're helping that advertiser get found. Even if their website isn't ranking, their page in your directory will be found because of its higher authority in the market. And that's a huge service you can provide.
Just one last point. So Yelp is an example. I talk about this all the time. So Yelp creates 0 unique content, right? All their content is user generated. And yet they're, if you're searching for pizza or coffee or whatever, you're always going to see a Yelp page on the first page of Google, because Yelp has authority with the search engines as being a place where you can find stuff like that. And that coffee shop has 100 reviews, right? And it has 20 reviews over the last 3 weeks. So there's stuff going on. So that's why they win. And simple as that, with 0 unique content. So if you have good unique content and consumer-generated content, I think you become the authoritative source. Sorry.
So we don't flip too far beyond schedule. A very quick question.
Good question.
Couple very quick answers.
So quick question, are there any examples where your system's actually for a category showing up #1 for any of those local searches, like for apartments or for bars or for real estate?
Yeah, so let's take that offline. But the short answer is yes. Now, is it consistent like all the time? Not always. As you know, SEO is a tricky beast. But yes, and it doesn't take a long time. A couple of weeks, if you're doing things the right way, you can start raising up and being on the first page of searches.
Any other quick thoughts?
I just want to mention, we did a webinar on some of this stuff, so a lot of you already have access to it. I will repost it. The expertise level is probably a little lower because I was the one doing some of the talking, but using other people's products is a viable way to do it. It's a big decision, though. You got to price it right.
Okay, I have one question. What happens if you're in a small market and then you have more than one website in the community and you have multiple business directories? In other words, they're kind of competing against each other. You get in some kind of where you have to evaluate the quality of each one or something.
You want to talk about that offline? I don't know. It sounds like we're running out of time.
Well, we're getting pretty close, but if you have a quick
Are
comment.
those 2 sites that you own, or are one you have one and then somebody else has one?
Okay, so there are, I don't know the exact number, but let's say 450 different directory sites out on the internet today in the United States alone. And that doesn't account, someone who's local that's only covering your town. So national directories, 450 easily, and probably growing. And a lot of people think that a business directory is a quick, easy way to become #1 in search. So and this is actually something we learned when we first started putting our business directory on publisher sites. Just having the directory there by itself is not going to help you if you're not doing the engagement on top of it, right? The cross-linking and all the other things. So just because someone else has a business directory in your community doesn't mean anything. There's effort associated with it, but if you get the engagement going, you get people giving the feedback, if you're doing the cross-linking, if you're giving a badge to your customers, so that businesses, so they're putting links on their website to yours, you are going to win. And if the other site's doing the same thing, they're going to win too. So you'll have a nice little competition going on. But we're finding very few people do that. Even the national directories, we tell our customers there's only about 5 that you care about. All the rest are crap.
What are those 5?
So there's 4 major aggregators: Infogroup, Axiom, Localese, and Factual. Did I say Factual? Okay. Infogroup, Axiom, Localese, Factual. Your businesses need to be in every one of those 4. They syndicate directory listings across the United States and Canada, and then they sell that to people all over the place. So those other 446 are likely
they're all
getting it
buying
from
that.
those 4. So if you're good in those 4, you're probably good in most of them. By the way, that's one of the services we offer in the Busy Hit platform. Yelp, you have to be on Yelp, right? Whether you love it or hate it, as a business owner, if you don't tell your small business owners that they should be on Yelp, you're doing them a disservice, because it's a high authority site. They should be there. Okay, they should also be on your site, because you're going to be a high local authority source.
That's a hard thing for a lot of us small publishers to do, to recommend that somebody be somewhere else. But in providing them with good business advice, and in not just being a publisher, but being an advisor and somebody who helps them, we're supposed to give them that.
That's exactly right. And it also, it helps you have more authority, because they're seeing that you are out for their best interests. Now,
we don't just want their money. We want their money, and we want to help them.
Well, but if, and I will tell someone, go on Yelp, and immediately after that, if I'm a small publisher, I say, but by the way, if you're on my site, I'm going to take care of getting you on all these other sites. And any change you make, just make it on my site. I am authoritative. Whatever you do on my site, I will make sure it goes everywhere that's important. And I'm also going to make sure that you're visible in our town. Yelp can't do that. Yelp's going to call you and ask you to advertise on their site and way overpay, right? So you say the good and the bad, right? So the good is, yes, you should be on Yelp. By the way, they're going to ask you for money that you're flushing down the toilet, and you should give to me instead. Infogroup, Axiom, ACXIOM, Localese, LOCALEZE. It's actually, the company's named Newstar, so it's Newstar Localese, and Factual.
And then you still need to encourage them to claim their Google listings, because that's the one thing that these other guys aren't going to feed and optimize.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you guys for the very great advice, and thanks. We are going to take a very, very short break to, but of course, to